Oops.
It starts that again. But did the video. Good evening. Welcome to the January 24th, 2022 meeting of the Library Commission. I'll call the meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. This is a teleconference meeting with commission members, city staff, and members of the public participating remotely to ensure that proper social distancing in this federal, state, and local emergency. I would like to introduce the staff and commission members present. Commissioners present include Vice Chair Alan Cohen, myself, Chair David Earhart, Commissioner Katie Hadrovic, Commissioner Kristen Leap, Commissioner Vamsi Velagapudi. I'd also like to introduce the staff that's present, Library and Community Services Director Sean Reinhart, and Assistant Library Services Director Nick Shejga. So with that, Nick, if you could go ahead and I guess Nick is, sorry, apologize, I didn't print this out in color today. Nick is also the staff liaison for the commission. Nick, will you please take a moment and provide instructions to the commission and members of the public in attendance on how the meeting will proceed?
So at the Zoom meeting, we ask the commissioners to, if they can, keep their cameras on and keep their microphones off until they are recognized by the chair to speak. Commissioners, you can use that raise hand function at the bottom of the Zoom screen, or you can just raise your hand on camera to be recognized by the chair. For members of the public, the chair will be calling for public comment at various times throughout the meeting. If you'd like to speak during public comment, please use that raise hand function at the bottom of the Zoom screen, or if you're a dial-in listener, press *9 on your phone. Once you've been recognized by the chair, I will then make it possible for you to make your comment. Please state your name clearly and the jurisdiction in which you live. The limit for public comment is 3 minutes per item.
Thank you. Because this is a special meeting of the commission, there is no general public comment for items not listed on the agenda. The chair will call. Well, I'll call for comment on each item as the agenda proceeds individually. Okay, so just as a general comment, we do have a pretty light agenda, so there's plenty of time for discussion tonight, but also there shouldn't be any issue as far as timing. The first item of regular business, C1 from the agenda, is to approve the minutes from the November 11th, 2021 joint special meeting with Parks and Rec Commission. Those minutes were attached to the agenda. Staff liaison, do we have a public comment? Any public comment on this item?
Any member of the public would like to make a comment on item C1, the approval of the minutes, please use that raise hand function on your Zoom screen or press *9 on your phone now. And seeing none.
Yeah, to answer your question earlier, Katie, doesn't appear to be anybody in the public side right now.
Yeah, I see that as well.
Yeah. All right, at this time, I'm opening the topic up for Library Commission discussion. Any comments, feedback, or question regarding the minutes as they were documented?
I move to pass the minutes as written. Approve the minutes as written.
So I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Do I have a second for the stated motion?
Yeah, I'd be happy to second that.
Thank you. Staff liaison, would you please take a roll call vote on the stated motion and announce the results?
I will do so. Vice Chair Cohen, how do you vote?
Approve.
Commissioner Hadrovic, how do you vote? Commissioner Leap, how do you vote?
In favor.
Chair Earhart, how do you vote?
Approve.
And Commissioner Velagapudi, how do you vote?
Approve.
And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. The next topic on tonight's agenda is a 6-month service reactivation review provided by staff. I believe Assistant Library Director Shejga will be making the presentation.
Sure, let me pull up the report here and so you guys can take a look at it while we talk about it. We committed during, I guess at the end of, right when we were reactivating in the summer of last year, to come back to the commission and sort of give you guys an update on how things had been going. And this report sort of gives you the major milestones. So we've been gradually ramping our open hours to in-person service up. So we now have, when we started, we were just Tuesday through Saturday. We added Monday hours in November, brought back in-person story times also in November. And we are planning now to add Sunday hours next weekend. Will be our first weekend of Sunday hours. That will get us back up to 56 hours at both the branch and the main library, which is very close to what we had pre-pandemic. We had pre-pandemic 59 hours at the main library and 56 hours at the Belhaven branch. The reason for the discrepancy there is there was a 3-hour period where the school had early release and they didn't want us to be open to the public during that time. The library book drop will start being, return to being open 24/7, which is a big plus. It's been a big sort of kind of a pain point for customers to have the book drop locked. The book drops are kept locked when we're not open and staff aren't here because stuff fills up actually faster than people think. And then people end up leaving materials on top or around the book drop, which they get damaged by the elements or they walk away and don't come back. So that should be great. A few other things. I told you about the in-person story times and happy to discuss about these as soon as I'm done doing my little spiel here. We're continuing the in-person story times at the 3 childcare facilities, which we started over the pandemic, and it's been a good thing. We've done some hiring, getting our staffing back to a more normal position, 2 full-time librarians, 2 library assistant positions, and 2 program assistant positions. The program assistants are part-time. In addition to that, we've hired 10 part-time staff, temporary, not benefited personnel. Friends of the library are starting to return to normal-ish. They had an in-person book sale in October. They plan another one for the end of February, COVID permitting. And the virtual programming is still going great guns. We have now a regular zoo story time on Wednesday mornings, which is nice. Some of the parents, especially of the younger kids, weren't comfortable with in-person story times, especially because the little kids aren't yet eligible for vaccination. So they really appreciated the virtual story times, which we had been doing with a musician. That was sort of a non-staff story time on Wednesday mornings. Now John Weaver, who does our library programming, has booked a number of zoos who, along with a book story time, will then do a little bit of animal show and tell. So that's been very popular. Safety protocols still in place for staff. We're following all of the most recent and ever-changing updated protocols. That's it for my report. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them or elaborate on any of those points.
Do we want to have public comment first, just to get that out of the way? Staff liaison Nick Shedko.
Yes, thanks for reminding me. If any member of the public would like to make a comment on item C2, the 6-month reactivation review, please use that raise hand function at the bottom of your Zoom screen or press *9 on your phone now. And I see no public comment.
Thank you. Yeah, with that, we'll open up the item for general commission discussion or questions, or I will kick it off. I am curious, is it possible to tell, let's say over the, since, in the 6 months, in terms of the mix of activities or the things that people interacted at the library for, be it what kind of media, what type of media was being checked out, whatever. Do you have a sense of, has there been a change between pre-pandemic and post-pan, current, time in terms of people are, fewer books, more DVDs, fewer, I'm just curious in terms of, did this result in a change in behavior? And with that, do we think it's going to return to pre-pandemic behavior, stay as it is, or are we, is the world anticipating some sort of hybrid? I am just curious in terms of what the thought is from a library coaches.
I'll start off and then I'll give Sean a chance to chime in. I think it normalized remote programming. So things like cooking programming, book talks, lectures, things that work really, that are sort of more one way and less interactive are very popular. And we have attendees coming in from all over the place. So that's not our main focus, to have attendees from all over the place, because of the nature of the internet and people who moved during the pandemic. We have attendees from all over the country. So that's one. Also, I think what got more popularized and normalized were all of our electronic offerings. So ebooks, but downloadable audiobooks and streaming video and streaming music got a lot more popular. So we've seen and more of our budget going towards that, and less for physical books. And that was a question of necessity at the beginning of the pandemic, because we had very limited access. You could make an appointment for curbside pickup, but you couldn't browse. And so it was we put a lot more money into our electronic offerings and our databases at that point, have started to shift back to more physical material purchasing, but now getting jammed up by some of the problems in supply chain, where you'll order books and they won't come in for a few months. So that sort of thing. I haven't noticed personally any particular shift in customer use habits for, like, suddenly people are taking out tons of biographies or things like that. I haven't noticed that. Anecdotally, people have been very kind and coming up and talking to staff and saying, thank you for being open. Thank you for having books and movies available. But I haven't run a lot of statistics yet to see. In general, since we've reopened in June, attendance, in-person attendance and circulation are both far below what they normally are. They're probably 40–50% of what they normally are. And because we were thinking once we reopen, we'll be all the way reopen and everybody will be very comfortable with coming back in. And of course, that hasn't been the case. The pandemic has been up and down, and sort of anxiety levels have been up and down amongst the public, and health orders have been, restrictive, less restrictive, more restrictive. So there have been some limitations, external limitations on people coming back in and really getting going with the library as the way it was before.
So I got maybe two additional sort of next level questions based on your response. The first one was, do we then foresee broadening our perspective on the not just local and continue to support and potentially grow the online sort of venues that have appeared to be so successful? Do we know? Is that something that if you looked at what sort of the way we were going to do things, 2-3 years ago, I guess I have to go back 3 years and I have normal. And what we're thinking a year from now, would you see a richer set of these virtual and distance, opportunities with, in terms of library interaction?
I think so. I think they'll continue. And on some, they've been more successful. Some kinds of programs virtually have been more successful than they were in person. For instance, a cooking program, which you would think would not be as successful virtually because you don't get to taste and smell whatever the delicious foods they're cooking. But what it's enabled us to do is it's been more convenient for people to not have to come down to the library, to stay at home and watch this, which is something a topic that they're interested in. And it's been easier for us on sort of the staff side to get sort of far-flung presenters. So we've done cooking programs with, our presenters in the Philippines. We've done cooking programs where people are all over the country. And that's been a real, that's been very enriching, I think. It's been a lot better because we don't have to we have a bigger pool of presenters and types of programs that we can pull from. So I think that will continue. We haven't really figured out yet the hybrid event. So in-person and virtual components. We're not quite there yet. The city is just sort of starting to come back with that, with the city council meetings, which are in person in the council chambers, but also remote. I think,
but they're in person. They're in person for council members, but not public right now. So it's kind of a weird.
yeah,
kind of a weird
it is odd, but
yeah.
I can foresee members of the public wanting to have that remote opportunity. It's a lot nicer experience for me to attend a very long council meeting as a member of the public and only kind of tune in to that section of the meeting that I'm really interested in, and not be sort of captive in the council chamber for
held
hours.
hostage. Exactly.
Yeah.
So the second piece was, I know the PLS transition was sort of starting a year ago, 18 months ago, and as you mentioned, the electronic holdings aspect of customer use has gone up. Have we already transitioned to whatever was going to be either the new PLS or a replacement for it at this stage of the game?
Well, the council decided not to go ahead with that transition away from PLS. So we're still a member of PLS. But I think the system as a whole is kind of changing their offerings and rethinking those sort of electronic offerings that they offer as a system. So we'll see if that changes. I think people really still like the customers really like the convenience still of being able to get things from other libraries and drop them off at other libraries. So I think it's been good in that sense.
If I could just weigh into about electronic resources, certainly, there's great interest in them from members of the public, although people still, I think on the whole, majority still into paper books. But we certainly increased, to the extent we could, access to like downloadable audio books and all those things. One thing that it's just an incredible challenge is that it is not possible to own these electronic versions of books and audio. It's essentially like a lease or a subscription to those publishers, and incredibly cost prohibitive to really offer on any kind of meaningful scale access for circulation to library patrons. So to your question about, will the pandemic kind of result in, some sort of change in, virtual electronic versus in person. When it comes to electronic resources, as long as the publishing model is such that, we can't really actually acquire one copy of a work of art or fiction and then circulate it to an infinite number, in theory, an infinite number of patrons, it's just not going to be cost effective. And so there's actually been, it's just been an ongoing issue in the library and publishing world for quite some time. And there's the other thing about just sort of foot traffic in general. Certainly it's still much less than it was before the pandemic. And I think the question was, do we expect that to come back or change, or we need some new normal? I think it's a little too early to tell, but I will share one example that may be illustrative from another division within our department, which is childcare. So before the pandemic, both of our childcares, we have two of them, Menlo Children's Center and Belhaven Child Development Center, fully enrolled with waiting lists, very long waiting lists actually, of people clamoring to get in. Pandemic hit, they closed for a short period of time, then they went to sort of limited operations. People need childcare. it's not something that you have to have childcare. But the pandemic seems to have changed, at least for now, the demand, in that one of the childcares still is not fully enrolled. And when the staff in the childcares have asked the folks who previously had their children there or who were previously on the wait list, either their life circumstances had changed, where maybe they're working from home or something, or they've altered their care situation at home to where they didn't need the childcare, or they're still not comfortable sending their children back, so they've rearranged their lives for that purpose. And I think there's a little bit of that happening just with library foot traffic as well. It's just we're still not quite out of the pandemic, and maybe in some cases people's sort of patterns, if you will, have changed forever. I think it's still a little too early to tell, but those are some of the initial signals that we're kind of getting.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Katie.
Thanks, Nick. Sean, you touched on the budget for electronic books, and actually my question had been related to what Nick was telling us about the, maybe surge is an overstatement, but the surge in popularity of online programming, such as the cooking classes. And I have to admit, I haven't been to any of the cooking classes or cooking demos, but now I'm interested to see one. And I was very surprised to hear you say that you're getting presenters from all over the place, including the Philippines, I think you said. So what I wondered is, are all of the presenters that contribute to our video programming doing that for free, or are we paying them? And do you anticipate needing an increase in the budget for online programming if the popularity of it continues to grow or stays the same as it's been during the pandemic?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. The presenters are not presenting for free for the most part. They are sponsored very generously by funds from the Friends of the Library. So the library makes a request to the Friends of the Library every year for materials and money for presenters for programs. And this was going on before the pandemic as well. And they provide those funds. So not yet. We haven't really, I think it hasn't really shaken out to the point where we can make firm decisions about what the budget's going to look like or how the budget's going to be changed. As Sean said, it really hasn't sort of settled back into a recognizable pattern. It's still kind of choppy and uncertain as far as what we'll need more money for and what the usage patterns will be, what the demand will be. So we're not quite, we have sort of inklings, but it's more, what's the word? I can't think of the word now. It's more, it's not like we haven't made a science of it yet and said this many more people have been in programs than were in the year before. I don't think we can really make a good study of it yet.
Any other questions, comments, feedback from the commission? And thanks for joining us, Commissioner Singh.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. Sorry, I was a little late. Had to put my little baby down.
It's important.
Understood. Okay. Well, if there aren't additional questions or comments for staff, this doesn't require a vote on our part. We're not taking any action on it. So at this point, we will move on to item C3, which is a proposal or a need to cancel the February 21st, 2022 regular meeting of the Library Commission and reschedule it for the following Monday, the 28th. So this is to avoid the President's holiday, which would conflict with the meeting schedule. At this point, are there any public comments staff liaison for relative to this topic?
If any member of the public would like to make a comment on item C3, canceling the regular meeting on February 21st and holding a special meeting of the Library Commission on February 28th, please use that raise hand function in Zoom at the bottom of your screen, or if you're dialing in, press *9 now. Seeing none.
Thank you very much. At this point, I'll open the topic up for Library Commission comment. We will be voting on this, so absent a debate or comment about it, I'd be also looking for a motion to cancel the meeting on the 21st in lieu of a new meeting on the 28th.
I'd be happy to propose a motion to postpone to 28th.
Well, it's actually canceling. It's official. We're canceling the 21st and scheduling an additional one on the 28th. That's kind of I think I'm correct, Nick, in terms of how we're describing this, right?
That's correct. Yeah, we have to cancel the regular meeting and send out a notice to everyone about that, and then have a special meeting on the 28th.
So we have a motion for doing that. Do I have a second for the stated motion?
Happy to second the motion to cancel on the 21st and reschedule schedule a meeting for the 28th.
Thank you very much. So staff liaison, would you please take a roll call vote on the stated motion?
I will do
and announce the
so.
result?
Sorry, this is so sort of painstaking, guys. We do this video roll call just because when there are people in attendance, there may be people in it who are in attendance who are on the phone and can't see you raise your hands and things like that. So that's why we do this. It seems a little silly or protracted or something, but that's why we do it. So Commissioner Cohen, how do you vote on the motion?
I support the motion.
Great. I'm sorry, Vice Chair Cohen, how do you vote?
I still support the motion.
Good. Chair Earhart, how do you vote?
Approve.
Commissioner Hadrovich, how do you vote?
I approve it.
Commissioner Leap, how do you vote?
In favor.
Commissioner Singh, how do you vote?
In favor.
And Commissioner Velagapudi, how do you vote?
In favor.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving along, we're now transitioning to the informational items, topic D on the agenda. These are transmitted to the Library Commission in staff's effort to provide an update on the matters of importance to the council. Informational items are not action items, however. A commissioner, city staff member, or a member of the public may request to make a comment or ask a question on any of the informational items. The first informational item we have on the agenda tonight are department updates. I believe that the Library and Community Services Director Reinhardt will be giving the update.
Yes, relatively brief because you already received a fair number of updates in the previous item that Nick presented with the 6-month review. Just one thing I wanted to add for the Commission's attention is the Belhaven Branch Library. As you know, it's located in Belhaven School, which itself is owned by Ravenswood School District. We operate the library there through a memorandum of understanding with the district, which we've had in place since the library was constructed in like 1999. Anyway, it's up for renewal on June 30th. We previously renewed it with the school district 2 years ago on June 30, 2020, for 2 additional years to get us through the construction of the Menlo Park Community Campus, and then we'd move into the new facility. The completion of the MPCC facility is now a little bit later than we had projected at that time, so we need to renew it again. We have been in conversations with the Ravenswood City School District staff to go ahead and renew the MOU for 2 additional years, or shortly after the new Menlo Park Community Campus opens, whichever comes first. So really just a heads up for the commission that we're kind of seeing to that little piece of business to make sure that we still have a MOU while we're in the library until the new building opens. That would require approval by the Ravenswood School District Board of Education, as well as the City Council. So we're going to be moving forward to those 2 governing bodies probably next month to get the authorization to extend the MOU for the Belhaven Branch Library. So that's the only other update to add that wasn't mentioned previously. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So you did raise a interesting point with since the library has been co-located with and providing library services to the elementary school. What will be the plan for providing that? Is the library going to leave a residual, service there, or when it relocates to the MPCC, it will cease to do any operation on the campus?
So the city, the plan is the city would move the branch library into MPCC and would no longer operate any library services at the school. However, my understanding is that Ravenswood School District does intend to offer library services to its school population. I believe they have a different room in the campus for that, and that they may want to use the current branch library space for some other purpose, especially since their enrollment has increased significantly. You may recall they recently closed a couple of their other schools in the district. And so the Belhaven School enrollment, I think, doubled because they basically absorbed Willow Oaks Elementary School. So as far as I understand it, that's the plan. Certainly the city not operating any library services there, but I believe the school district has some alternate plans for doing that for the kids.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the commission?
Yeah,
And
just incidental question for Sean. Can we see a copy of the MOU, or is that something that's proprietary?
Oh, no, absolutely. It's public knowledge. What we can do is in the minutes for this item, Nick, is we'll just drop a link to the city council staff report. It was from the year 2020. I think it was sometime around this time of year that we did it. So we'll find the link, that way it's in the minutes and you can access it. And it includes the whole MOU.
Great, thank you.
Another thing we'll do is proactively, when the item goes to the Ravenswood School District Board of Education and to City Council, we'll ping the Library Commission so you can see the renewal as well.
I did forget to ask, is there any public comment?
Any member of the public would like to make a comment on the item D1 department updates, please use that raise hand function in Zoom or *9 if you are dialing in. And there is no comment.
Thank you.
Can I ask
Any
a
further?
question?
Oh, go ahead.
David,
Yes.
can I ask a question about that? If we, because we can all see who's attending, if we can see that there's no one from the public attending one of our meetings, can we just make note of that at some point and then skip that portion of
So
every
I don't have to, you don't have to. hear
every
my
item?
dulcet
And then if
tones.
suddenly, I'm assuming Nick as the moderator, he keeps track. If we see someone come in so that there's a member of the public, we can resume that. But just seems to me, it's kind of silly that we do that for every item going forward if we don't have to. So
Yeah, I
just
agree.
wondered.
Let me check with the city clerk and make sure it's okay, because it may be some kind of rule that I have to call for public comment, whether there's people here or not. I'm not sure. So I'm happy to check and see. I agree. It is a little silly. If we can see, I can see that there are no attendees and I keep calling for public comment. It's kind of odd.
My only thought on that would be that if we don't make a statement saying at this time we don't see any outside attendees, so we're not going to call for public comment. Otherwise, that's not part of the record. The attendee status doesn't end up in the video, right?
Right.
So it would not be
I see.
obvious.
Okay.
Would not be obvious if there wasn't somebody dialed in. So it is. I think it's certainly a reasonable thing. And Nick, if you would check, if when we look, we get to the point where we'd be asking for, we say, oh, seeing no one, in the outside attendee list, we just move on. I mean, so we could at least sort of say we've acknowledged the fact that there isn't you
I
know,
see.
an external.
Yeah, I
public.
just, I've never looked at one of the recordings, so I thought maybe it had the participants like we see it, but sorry to interrupt. It just seemed to me we do this.
No, no.
I mean, I did it the whole
does-
time. I was the chair too, and
it-
it just seems kind of crazy if nobody's.
It does.
here with us.
It definitely feels crazy. I agree with you. So, any further questions or comments from the commission on the information on the department update? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item D2, which is the Library Commission tentative agenda calendar.
Actually,
I did see
sorry.
that Nick, it showed up briefly.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up a different version. I'm gonna pull up a version that I can actually edit. Plus, I noticed
okay.
that there was a typo on the one that I sent out with the packet, so I just had 2020, 2021 instead of 2022 there. So here we go. So this is actually the agenda or the planning calendar for next month, but there you go. We'll be forward looking here.
Okay. So, and just for the rest of the commission, during the planning session for this meeting, Sean and Nick and I agreed to start trying to populate sort of the forward-looking topics that reflect the MPCC operational planning aspects, and you know, starting to get a roadmap towards, you know, identifying what will need to be covered there. And then they were generous enough to cloud seed a few staff updates, you know, different topics that are germane to the library function. As you can see there, the story time, registration, and so forth. So at this time, Nick, if you could scroll down so we could see the additional items, just what I'd be looking for from the commission right now would be either from this list of unscheduled future items, if there's one of these items that there's a compelling reason for bringing it, you know, forward in terms of bringing it actually onto the calendar, let's have that discussion. Or if there are other items that we need to either add here, you aren't feeling that there's a month yet you're ready to talk about them, or something that we need to add, we can add sort of out of the ether into the calendar. So this is your opportunity to you know, to sort of try to steer the content for future meetings. So if you wouldn't mind, again, it's hard to show both screens at one time. Yeah, we kind of got the bottom piece and then the stuff at the top. So. Questions about what's kind of already pre-populated in here?
I think in the middle of the year, May and June, is when we elect a new chair and vice chair. And that's also when, if there are commissioners transitioning off the commission, new commissioners come on, usually in that May, June time period.
Yeah, assuming we keep to the usual schedule as far as the selection process.
David, I'll just say that I think that's a really smart strategy to start to take chunks of the operations for the future MPCC and just devote a little bit of time at each meeting to something different, and having our calendar populated like that so far in advance, I think really gives people that are paying attention to library commission events nice notice on issues of particular concern to them. So I don't know if it was your idea or Nick's or Sean's, but I think it's really smart. I appreciate that.
Well, I think the staff definitely was open and supportive of this. I do see that in July post, what we did talk about was, can we start anticipating those policies, which because of the multi-use aspect of the facility will necessitate updating and modification. And so you start seeing, post this operational planning piece, starting with a cadence of those things that might start. Well, certainly at the meeting room, for example, where there's going to be a lot of different access to the facility. So I think that's also giving us an opportunity to kind of get a refresh on those policies that we know are going to be touched by the multi-use role of the facility. Any additional suggestions, comments, requests relative to, say the February meeting close in, and then, the next couple of meetings?
Can I just ask one more question? Did you have any thought, David, about whether or not we would do another meeting with Parks and Rec or any feedback related to that? I don't know that we need it, but if we are having some of these discussions related to spaces that are going to be multi-use, then maybe those are times when we might want to try to meet up with them again if that seems like something we want to do going forward.
Yeah, I was just looking over at the staff report from November, where we were talking about that sort of cadence for the meetings, where we kind of laid out a draft plan of which issues when, and trying to look and see when might be a logical time to have another one of those joint meetings. And to me, it looks like maybe in April, where we're talking about the children's library, at least in the cadence there, and staffing. That might be a good spot, or maybe further out in September, when we're talking about memberships and fees and how we want to handle residents, non-residents, and that sort of access and those sorts of questions about the facilities. So that's my hot take on it, is either April or September might be good times.
Yeah, and I would just comment, Katie, and I want to acknowledge the fact that the Parks and Rec Commission has a lot more kind of urgent things and topics that are on a different time scale than ours. And so I think the idea is to try to be judicious and recognize their schedule and what they need to cover, and so I think what you propose, well, it seems like it's pretty, September's a long way off. It'll be here before we know it, and we'll be dealing with those things. So I guess I'm going to recommend we can go back, Nick, and have the conversation with Chair Taylor and talk about what would make some sense given your proposal, the April or September timeframe. That would be fine. I think that would be a reasonable thing.
And to be clear, I'm not advocating we should be having another one soon or early or often or anything. I was just wondering, in terms of our calendar, whether or not that was something that seemed profitable for, I mean, I know we had more people attend than ever, but maybe it's just because lots of people attend the Parks and Rec board meetings or commission meetings and not so many for us, but something, to consider if we wanted to designate one of our upcoming meetings to try to collaborate with them.
If I may make a suggestion, first of all, I think actually a lot of the folks who attended the last joint meeting, they were there specifically because the NPCC was the topic. So I believe the next joint meeting, and I do think you should meet again. I think that's what was determined at the last one, that you would do it again. That you'll have a similar kind of turnout because of the nature of the project. I would suggest that maybe you put it on unscheduled for now, kind of at the bottom of the agenda, so that it's there, and then you can kind of work out the timing as Chair Earhart mentioned. Kind of just check in with the chair of the Parks and Recreation Commission, get it synced up in the calendar. So that would just be my suggestion to make sure that it happens.
Yeah, that's good. I would just potentially, put parenthetically there, Nick, possibly April or September, just so we keep in front of ourselves what the proposal would be, just to keep honest about it.
And while I was on the microphone, if we feel like we've kind of covered the joint meeting, I had a couple other things that just came to mind that aren't on this draft, but I want to point out. I think the idea of noting the election of officers is a good one. So you might actually go ahead and plug that in tentatively in May or June, because that's something that the commission must do after new board members are seated. And I think it's typically the May meeting that you would do, May or June. So pick one. The other thing is that the commission work plans need to be presented to the city council by September each year. It hasn't really happened that way in the past couple of years for various reasons, but that's the official date. So you might consider putting a review of the work plan on the September meeting, because I believe the date for maybe even August, but let's say September, because that's when the city council handbook and commission handbook says that the work plan should be presented to the council each year. And then my final thing is just about the dates. So in the before times, eons ago, in the midst of time before the pandemic, we used to do a commission dinner where we'd get together for dinner. I think it was in July when we last did it in 2019. I just want to kind of put that out there. I don't know if it's on the calendar yet, but what we typically had happened is pick a date, either December or July typically, where there really wouldn't be any business on the agenda, and then the commission would just convene and go to dinner. So some kind of just celebratory gathering, because you're all volunteers, you work very hard, and we're happy to treat you to a dinner. So maybe just put that out there. It'd be nice to bring that back if possible. I think in past events, all the commissioners really enjoyed it. So, and that's it.
There's some new restaurants coming to the Springvine project just over there where Foster's Freeze used to be, I heard. So there you go.
Yeah, and I actually look at this as potentially a mental health thing, you know, having hope that there's going to eventually be some light at the end of the tunnel. And if we have to move it, we move it. But to have it out there as sort of a, you know, a potentiality is definitely and you know, heartening. So, okay.
Can I ask one more question related to unscheduled future events? I'm seeing the DEI initiative update listed. Can you just remind me, and maybe remind all of us, what is that a target? Is that a staff thing? Is that outreach? And is it still in the planning stages so that you're not ready to present that to us? Or is it something that we actually could be taking a look at? Because I think the entire community, is really interested in general in DEI initiatives in all sectors, at all levels. So I would be interested in knowing I know it's in the parking lot, but is that because it's not something you're working on yet, or what is going on?
I can feel that one, because I think at this point in time, just the short answer is it probably needs the asterisk pending citywide policy update, similar to the emergency preparedness, because this came out of the city was going to be taking on a pretty significant DEI initiative citywide with all kinds of public engagement. The pandemic kind of threw a wrench in that. And then the latest I've heard is that the city council maybe wants to take it in the same direction, but maybe with a different vehicle. And so it's still to be determined. And we don't want to get out in front of, don't want to get out ahead of what the city council was doing. So that's why it's still there. But yeah, that asterisk I think maybe helps a little bit, that we're sort of waiting to get the go ahead.
That makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah.
Because I was curious about if it was a library specific policy, what level of scope you were looking at. So the fact that it is a citywide initiative makes sense, that it would go from the top down and then be dispersed to us.
Yeah, I will say though, it's always something of great interest to the library, and had there not been this sort of citywide effort sort of proposed, we would have already tackled this like a year plus ago with a diversity, equity, inclusion policy at the library. Just we're sort of waiting for the citywide update. This is actually a good reminder to kind of check in, which I will do with the city manager about, hey, what do we think is the timing there? Because otherwise we may want to go ahead and move forward just on the library side with the library policy. We were thinking of doing like a DEI statement, just to underscore our commitment to that in all aspects of what we do. And as we get closer to the MPCC project, I really feel like we should have that in place before it opens. So if we do it on our own, we can do it on our own. If it's going to be part of a citywide update, that's even better. But not if the update's going to happen after the MPCC opens. So thank you for bringing it up, and it's a good reminder to
Thank
us
you.
to
Okay,
find out.
thanks.
Yeah, I think there are some elements in the departmental strategic plan as well, which I think is what we originally, why it was originally there. I think it was on your agenda calendar, and then the city decided they would like to do a citywide initiative, and the council started to talk about it with city staff, and that's why it sort of got moved to the parking lot.
Okay, so the only thing I would comment, looks like, Nick, we've got a couple of those policy review things already in the agenda, right? Like the meeting room policies up there on the 15th. So I know I would just suggest removing the ones that we have on the calendar from the list of, and open ones still on there. Just a comment. Okay. All right. Any other comment, any other suggestions, requests relative to the agenda? We're not voting on it. It's just really kind of a conversation and a commission outcome here. So. And I don't see any public attendees in the session right now. So. Okay. If we're done with that topic, which seems like we are, we'll move to the commissioner reports, section E. At this time, I'd invite any commissioner who wants to give an update on either their liaison activities or other topics that are germane to the commission's responsibility. Nick, we have Commissioner Hedgevik's hand up. Let me get a second there.
Sorry, I forgot to click the raise hand. I just raised my hand. I have a couple updates just related to the partnerships that I don't know what words we're using anymore, but I related to the Menlo Park Historical Association. I've been in communication with Tim Johnston, who's their current president. I did not attend any of their events, but I can report, first of all, that I am a member of the Historical Association. I invite all of you to become members as well. You do get a really great newsletter from them, which they just sent to me for the January through March. And, just as a little plug to them, it's always very interesting when they highlight little snippets from Menlo Park's past, because, we are the birthplace of a lot of things that run our lives these days and other things. So the little things that they mention in the Historical Association quarterly newsletter are always very interesting to read. Secondly, Tim asked me to share the following, that the 2021 Menlo Park Historical Association annual membership dinner and business meeting was held at the historic Vallo Ambrosa Retreat Center on Sunday, November 21st, with 50 members and guests attending. So I think they are back in person, and they had a great event. So that's the update from the Menlo Park Historical Association. I also have a very brief update from the Menlo Park Library Foundation, which I'm also the liaison for, and that is that they are trying to recruit new members to the board. They are interested in having people who are residents of Belhaven serve on the board, and they are trying to put out feelers through local press and Nextdoor, those types of things. Apparently 2 new people will be joining this week, and they'd like to recruit another 1 to 2 people. I am on that foundation board. So if any of you want more information or think that someone who might be interested, you can reach out to Elise Stein, who is the president, but certainly you could also tell anyone to contact me. I'm on the board and I could give them an overview. Okay, that's it for me.
Katie, do you know that they've reached out to Pam Jones? Not so much that she would do it, because I think she's been involved with a few of these, the historical society for sure.
Yeah,
But that she's got a pretty well-connected network of emails and other types of things, and her kitchen chats and so forth. So if we haven't already pinged her for,
no,
yeah,
I agree completely, David, and I have mentioned her to Elise. I don't actually know who the specific people that Elise has reached out to, but
okay,
I had mentioned to her Pam and a few other specific people in the Belhaven community who I know are fairly active and have an interest in the library.
okay.
But you know what? I think we're meeting, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we might be meeting this Thursday. And so I'll bring
There's a
Pam's
board meeting.
name up again. I'm involved with a couple things with Pam, and I know she is a very busy woman and
Yes.
tends to not be interested in joining other things, but I'll check.
Yeah,
that out.
I wasn't considering off and by,
No, I appreciate it. I totally get it.
She's a good kind of similar. If you want to reach out to my wife Susan and get it in her blog if she hasn't already done it.
I think that we actually
Okay.
did reach out to
I
Susan, and I
thought
think I think she put it in the blog. So,
Okay.
yeah, thank you. Those are great suggestions, and you're right. Pam is really a wealth of information with people that might be interested in things, including, I think we've tapped her in the past to ask her for people that might want to join this library commission. So thanks.
Okay. Thank you for the update, Katie. Any other commissioner reports? Okay. Well, with that, I would thank you for your attendance tonight, for promptly getting through what was a light agenda, but getting through it with active discussion and involvement. Look forward to meeting with you again on February 28th. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting. It's now 7:29 p.m. on January 24th. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Bye. Good to see you.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.